All right, today, October 15th, is Infant Loss Awareness Day. And about a month ago, on September 17th, so almost exactly a month ago, my wife and I lost our infant baby boy, Cruz. So I came on here today for a couple reasons. I think number one, I wanted to share this story, my perspective on this story, a man's perspective on this story, which you don't hear very much, partially because it's helpful for me to talk through the whole story, to work through some things, to share it. But also, going through something like this is really strange, and partially or primarily because it feels really isolating when it happens. It feels like you're alone. Before this happened to us, I don't think neither of us knew anybody that this had ever happened to, and we hadn't hardly even heard about it. I mean, you know what happens. You understand, like, oh, people have stillborns, young babies die, things like that. But I hadn't ever heard of it on a personal level at all. Not even anything close to me, not even a friend of a friend, nothing like that. So when these kind of things happen, it's easy to feel alone, to feel like you're the only person that this is happening to, this has happened to, that there's not really a way through it. There's no, not that you need advice, but you don't hear any stories about it. You don't know how anybody else did it. If anybody else is doing it, there's no community about it, nothing. So I think sharing my story, hopefully, if somebody needs a space to go that's going through this or has gone through this and hasn't had anything, maybe they hear this and they know they aren't alone. This does and has happened to other people. There's definitely not a playbook to going through it, but I can give you my story and maybe there's some comfort in that. So, those are the reasons I wanted to share it. I'm going to tell the story from start to finish. I think that's the best way for me to do it. It is a little bit of a long story, but I think it's good to hear it all, to give you the ups and downs, how everything went from start, middle, end, the emotional roller coaster that it was, everything. So, yeah, I think I just wanted to put it out there, let people know our story, and like I said, hopefully provide a new perspective on it, a different perspective on it, perhaps, and help some people who are going through this feel like there are other people with them. So here we go. All right. So, like I said, he passed away about a month ago, September 17th, so much earlier, actually at the very end of last year. We found out my wife was pregnant. And the only reason I bring that up is because about 10 days before she took a pregnancy test and was positive, I had a dream that she was pregnant. I had a dream that our son came up to me and was like, "Hey, Dad, mom has a baby in her belly." And it turns out she did. I didn't tell her that in the moment. I want to freak her out, but turns out the dream was real. So anyway, I just wanted to give you that little tidbit to start. But normal start, right? Went in for the 20-week ultrasound. The 20-week ultrasound was technically normal, but looking back on it, there were some signs, right? Like we were in there and the ultrasound tech kept saying things to us like, "Oh, I'm just having a really hard angle. I can't see the things I need to see. I think he's just moving around, all that stuff." She didn't make a big deal out of it. So we left thinking everything was okay. And also at that time, we had done some initial genetic testing. Everything came back clean. No anomalies there. We knew it was a boy. All that stuff. But at that ultrasound, we left and we were like, "Oh, I think it was just a bad tech," right? So the report came back. Turns out, my wife, Jamie, the umbilical cord was 2 vessels instead of 3. So she had a 2 vessel cord. And this kind of freaked us out, right? Because it's something weird. But the doc was like, "Hey, not a huge deal. Don't need to worry. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. It just means the baby's going to end up being smaller in utero," which made sense, right? Only 2 vessels. There's probably a little bit less getting to the baby in terms of nutrients. But he was like, "Hey, it happens. I see about one of them a year. Typically no big deal," but he referred us to a high risk OB just in case. And so for reference on this, we're about 21 weeks in, right? So we went in for the 20-week ultrasound and then we hear about this. We're about 21 and we're thinking it's all good, just a small baby. So we go to the high risk or we make the high risk appointment. And it takes, with any specialist now, right? It's so annoying. It takes a couple weeks to get in. So in the meantime, like I said, we're thinking there's not a whole lot going on. We're kind of business as usual, which means in the summer for me, I have kind of a weird schedule. I travel a lot for work. I'm gone like 2 weeks out of the month. So in us thinking that nothing is wrong, it's all pretty much normal. I'm on the road. The appointment's just a formality. So I'm out of town. When my wife, Jamie, goes in for this ultrasound at the high risk OB. So this is July 8th, and I'm in Spokane, Washington. Appointments in the morning, Colorado time. So again, I'm an hour earlier Pacific time. So it's like 7 a.m. and Jamie's going in. And it's like right as the ultrasound ends, she texts me and she's like, "Hey, I'm a little nervous about what's going on here, just based on what the tech was saying." And she was like, "Why don't you call me so you can be in here when the doc comes in and you can hear what she has to say, I'm like, all right, cool. But now I'm nervous. And I'm especially nervous because Jamie is an ICU nurse, so she has a pretty good feel for like how medical professionals act and what they say when there's bad news coming. So her saying that she's nervous, the tech was saying some weird stuff. I'm like, all right, this is a little funky. I don't know what's going to come up here. So I'm really nervous. I'm sitting on the phone. It's like 7:45 a.m. in Spokane. And so the doc comes in and right away she's just like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. She keeps apologizing and she's like, it's definitely a two vessel cord, but also he has a diaphragmatic hernia, which means he essentially did not develop a diaphragm. And when this happens, when there's no diaphragm, organs, the stomach, liver float up and they impede the lungs. They prevent the lungs from growing the right way. So it's not good. And then he also has enlarged kidneys. She's like, he has a strawberry shaped head. And these things are typically signs of trisomy 18, which in trisomy 18 is not typically seen as something that's survivable if they live at all short lifespan. So total gut punch. We're 25 weeks into this now, thinking everything is more or less normal. Like, hey, two vessel cord, he's going to be a small baby, but everything's normal. And then we go into this, and now she told us he's not going to make it. So she then is like, oh, well, if it's trisomy, which I'm pretty sure it is, they should have shown up on the genetic testing. But we told her the initial test came back clean. So she's like, okay, to confirm, let's do a more exhaustive genetic test and we'll get some more answers. So obviously we're crushed. We don't know what to think, what to do. I'm out of town. Jamie's by herself at this OB. Her mom's watching our son. And there's nothing you can do to prepare for this. I mean, even if we had known it was coming, it still wouldn't matter, but we're crushed, right? So we agreed to do that testing and then we almost just slipped into this mourning process. I'm, calling my mom, I'm calling my dad, my sister, my brother. She's talking to her family and we're sharing this horrible news and there's nothing worse than making those phone calls, right? I'm calling my mom and just hey, yeah, he's not going to make it. So we're talking through this whole process. Hey, how are we going to handle this? We don't know. We're wondering why this is happening to us. What's going on with the baby? We're mad about it. We're sad. We're trying to figure out how we're going to explain this to our son, who is young. I mean, he was only 2-ish at the time, just over 2 at the time, but he knows Jamie was pregnant. He knew Jamie was pregnant and knew that he was going to have a brother. And now we have to explain to him, you're actually not going to have a brother. We know mom's pregnant, but you're not going to have a brother. So a ton of horrible things, right? And these are all things that you never think you're going to have to consider. So obviously, I said I'm in Spokane, Washington here. So obviously I leave this trip early. I come home and we spend the next 5 days just crying, talking to family, working through this thing. I don't know, everyone's kind of sharing their emotions, their feelings, and we're doing all this while we wait for the extra genetic test. So a few days later, the tests come back and the doc calls us and she's like, hey, the genetic testing is clean again. No trisomies, nothing, no issues are showing up. And it's okay. So, and she said, the doctor was like, I'm shocked. I'm shocked it's not trisomy 18. So we're on this kind of wild emotional roller coaster at this point, right? We were thinking it was normal. Then we're way down in the dumps and it's well, okay, maybe there's nothing wrong. There's a little bit of hope. So a total mess, right? So we hear that and she's like, well, come back in a few days and we'll do another ultrasound. So we go back in, we do an ultrasound. And at the end of the ultrasound, she's like, hey, actually, the head shape looks a little bit better. The kidneys, they don't look as enlarged. And the lungs look about normal for this point in development. So she said, it looks like he'll probably live. And she made the point, we're going to do some more testing. So he may have a genetic condition, but she's like, at this point, it looks like you're going to have this baby. So again, roller coaster, right? We're way down in the dumps. We're mourning this loss. We've decided he's going to die. We're telling this to family. And then we come back here and now it's okay, we're kind of cautiously optimistic. We think we're going to take home a baby here, hey, he might have to have surgery. He's got the diaphragmatic hernia. He may have some sort of genetic condition, but we're going to take him home, right? My son's going to have a brother. We're going to have another son. So we're again, walking out of that office feeling a little bit better, cautiously optimistic. We called our families right away. We're like, hey, better news than last time. So we finish up there and the OB tells us, again, we're going to do an additional genetic test to look for some rarer genetic anomalies because it seems like there's one. And she sent our info to Presbyterian St. Luke, PSL, a hospital in Colorado, to set us up with someone there so we can discuss options because she's like, with this hernia and potential, genetic disorder, you'll have to deliver either there at PSL or at Children's in Denver. So we're like, okay, cool, sounds good. She sends the info over. About another week later, 5 or 6 days later, um, you know, so we get set up with the genetic counselor first, but we get that initial testing done. We're feeling a little bit better. Then the test comes back. The genetic counselor calls us and she's like, hey, something did come back. It turns out he has a fairly rare genetic disorder called Cornelia de Lange syndrome. And this is a very, very severe disorder. So the genetic counselor goes on to explain that these kids who have Cornelia de Lange, they're usually severely intellectually disabled. They have massive behavioral problems. There's a lot of self-harm. They often don't eat on their own. She was like, good chance he has to have a feeding tube his whole life, may have trouble breathing on his own. They're prone to seizures. And she said, generally, the life expectancy just isn't super long with CDL. So, and then she kind of goes on to explain that the CDL diagnosis, the Cornelia de Lange diagnosis, paired with the diaphragmatic hernia is probably catastrophic. He's not going to survive. And at this point, we're set up to have a consultation with the doctors at PSL like 2 days later, and she works alongside them. So she was like, they have the info. We'll be in that meeting, and they can discuss or they can share with you, a more concrete plan, a more legitimate outlook. We meet with them, but she was like, it's not good. He's going to be a fragile kid. If he has Cornelia de Lange with all these, he's going to be a fragile baby, and this is a big deal. So a roller coaster ride continues. Now we're back down at the bottom again, telling us our baby's going to die. So it's just been this horrible up and down all the time of, hey, he's normal. He's not going to make it. Hey, it might be okay. You're going to bring him home. And now here, this is catastrophic, right? So now we're like preparing for either the death of our baby or we're going to bring home a severely disabled child after months in the NICU if he does survive. So we're all these emotions are back. We're mad, we're sad, we're frustrated, we're confused, we're anxious, all of it. We're pretty much back to square one. So a few days later, we meet with the docs at PSL and they confirm what the counselor told us, right? They're like, hey, if it was just Cornelia de Lange or just the diaphragmatic hernia, he'd probably have a chance, but both of them together, it's not good. There's not really a chance of survival. And they were like, it really comes down to lung development. But he gave us a stat when we were on that meeting. Like, he was like, if we take him out and put him in surgery, he's like, first of all, he's gonna have to be in the NICU for a long time to even be ready for surgery. And then if we can get him out, he said there's, like a 25% chance he makes it to the operating table and then like a 2% chance he makes it off the operating table if it happens. So again, not good. So then the docs at PSL, they refer us to Children's so we can get set up there. Children's in Denver does a lot of these cases. They're one of the best in the world. So they're like, you can go deliver there, get set up with them. So we get an appointment set up with them. And we basically just went in for a whole day at Children's. You do a ton of testing. Like they do a fetal MRI, which is crazy. They do a echocardiogram fetal. They do ultrasounds. You meet with a team of doctors, and then they kind of discuss your options based on these findings. And again, we knew going in here, after Children's, we're going to have as much information as we can have, so we'll be able to get a clear outlook. So, and all this has happened over the course of like 3 weeks. The most emotionally taxing 3 weeks of my life. It's like the constant up and down. I'm talking with family, with friends, with my wife. It's just miserable. And for me, like, you never know how this stuff is going to come to life for you specifically. And the way it manifested for me was anxiety. And I started feeling tons of anxiety about my own health, which is really weird. Like I'm not an anxious person at baseline in general. I haven't dealt with a lot of that. And I've never really been worried about my health either, but the weight of this death and like the random serious health issue that our baby had kind of took on a life of its own within me. And it was like, now I was worried about it. Like, oh, I'm going to have some sort of strange illness pop up and like, it's going to kill me. And I don't know, like I understood in the moment, like it was just anxiety, but it's hard to work through. It took a lot of time. And I think looking back on it, I think it was just the way like my fear and my sadness about my son dying came to life for me. I felt the fear of dying or being seriously sick myself, and that became worry about my family. So I was just all like everything kind of coming full circle for me. It was horrible, but that was how it came to life for me, was this horrible anxiety and dread that like, okay, this is going to happen to me now, and I'm going to have to leave my family, and it's going to be this terrible thing. So that's how it came to life for me. So It was a mess. It was super hard, and all of it came with so much uncertainty and so much. There was such an unknown factor to it. It was hard to process, and that was for all of us. And so going into this day at Children's, right, we're hoping to get answers, but we just didn't know what to expect. We didn't know what to feel. We were lost. And faith is a huge part of our lives. And through this, we're constantly praying. People are praying for us. We're reading up on this. We're in the Word, all that. And one of the things we ended up praying for most was clarity. Like all the time, we just kept asking God, we need you to provide clarity. We need clarity in terms of what to do through this process, how to handle it, and what decisions to make medically, which was a big one. The medical decision piece is huge and a horrible thing to have to think about with a baby, but we'd essentially been presented a few options by doctors so far. Option one was terminate the pregnancy early. They said, like, what we have was grounds for this. If you want to end it early, you can. This was a no for us almost right away. It was off the table. I think it was the whole process of it was just horrific at the point we were at, 28, 30 weeks. There's no way. It was horrible. So that was totally off the table. Option two, when the baby is born, they take him, they put him on a ventilator right away. They try to stable him. They put him on a machine that essentially keeps his heart beating. It works as his heart for him. And then after, however long it takes, whether it's, him growing or just, I don't know, strengthening, whatever, after that, you take him to surgery, you try to fix the diaphragmatic hernia, and then you hope he makes it from there. So that was option two. And then option three was comfort care. When he's born, you keep him comfortable, and you essentially let him pass peacefully on his own. So there are zero good options with that. Not one of those options is a good one. It was brutal. And obviously it's your baby, right? So you want to do what's right for him, what's best for him. You want to protect him, and you also want to do what's right for your family. There's just a lot of factors at play. So it was really hard. And going into Children's, this stuff was weighing pretty heavy on us. And we knew that day at Children's would give us as much information as we could possibly want. So we go in there praying for clarity. That was our big thing. Like, hey, God, while we're here, just give us clarity, make this abundantly clear. Let us know what your plan is, and then we'll make a decision. So it was a horrible day there. I was super hard. And it's just a really hard place to be. Like, you're walking around Children's Hospital, you're around a ton of just like horribly sick kids. It's terrible. But we went through all the stuff, like I said, the MRI, the echo, ultrasounds, a whole bunch of stuff. And then we met with a team of like 6 doctors at the end of the day, and they laid it all out for us. So they showed us, the MRI showed that he had virtually no diaphragm. There was really only a small piece of it, like right below his heart, which was essentially what was keeping him alive. And he'd always had a strong heartbeat. So, and they're like, that's the reason why he's always had a strong heartbeat, is he has essentially just one little piece of diaphragm underneath his heart. His liver and other organs were way up in his chest. And they found, the MRI showed he had about 5% of the lung tissue that he should have had at that point. So virtually no lungs. A new thing we found out, he had had a stroke in utero, so he had a brain bleed. It wasn't big, but it's hard to say what that means. And there were signs of significant kidney issues as well. So it was heavy. It was brutal. I mean, we prayed for clarity, and we got it in the toughest way possible. I mean, they laid it all out there. Like, it was even worse than we had thought, which was so hard to hear. But yeah, we got the clarity we asked for. And the diagnosis from the best doctors in the world was essentially a 0% chance of survival. I mean, they pulled out some numbers for us, and they're like, there are hardly any instances of this specific scenario, a child with Cornelia de Lange and a diaphragmatic hernia being born. There's just not many of them, but they were like, those things combined, looking at the lung tissue, essentially a 0% chance, right? There is no lung tissue and hardly any diaphragm to even repair if we wanted to. So based on that diagnosis and what they showed us in those discussions, the only real option was comfort care. The doc there who's like actually specialized in especially the hernias, the diaphragmatic hernias, said this was one of the worst cases he'd ever seen, and he expected that Cruz, our boy, would pass away probably in about 5 minutes. So, yeah, tough. I mean, clarity though. And in that process, like, the moment was really strange because on one hand, like, we were thankful the uncertainty was gone. But at the same time, it's horrible. Like, you're sitting there and it's like, okay, your worst fear is confirmed. This baby is going to die. So really strange, difficult to work through. And then on top of that, leaving that day, like, you have a day on your calendar circled. It's like, hey, this day, September 17th, That's going to be the worst day of our lives. And then you have 6 weeks to get there. So it's weird. I mean, 6 weeks, and it's like, okay, after these 6 weeks, we get to go through the worst thing we could imagine. So now, knowing what I know, I'm worried about what that day will be like. I'm worried about my wife. I'm worried about her physical health. I'm worried about her mental health. I'm worried about telling my son that his brother is going to die, that we're not going to bring a baby home for him. I'm worried about my parents. I'm worried about my siblings. And I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, how can I stay strong and be here, be a leader, be a rock for my family through this, which I don't know how to do. And I don't think anybody does. So the next 6 weeks, we just kind of go day by day. We tried to stay business as usual. I tried to stay, stay in check for myself and be there for my wife and son. And we did all right. We did fine. We worked through it the best we could. And again, I'm just constantly praying for, like, through this time, like, guidance, wisdom, courage. I want to be the husband, father, and son I need to be through this. And leading up to it, the only answer, like the only thing I got was, I just need to be in every moment. Just listen. I need to be vulnerable. Don't run away from this, because that's an easy one to do, especially where I was at. Like, no, I'm just going to stuff it aside. Don't worry about it. Like, feel the emotions, be upset, don't run from it, and trust that just kind of being around each other is all we can do. So that's what we did. And then the day came, which was super weird. Like, we drove down to the hospital the night before, and I remember sitting in the car and we're driving down and we're both like, this is so strange. Like, we're driving down to go through the worst thing ever. Like, to go have this horrible experience, and we don't know what it's going to be like. We don't know how either of us or our families are going to handle it. And we just know we go, and then on top of all that, we're going to go through a birth process and then leave just us two. We're not going to leave with a baby. So there was no way to prepare. There was nothing to say, nothing to do. We just had to go get through it and trust that we're in the right place with the right people. And so our son Cruz was born September 17th, 10:52 a.m. He took a few breaths, kind of, and passed away a little bit after. And the birth process was fine. It wasn't traumatic physically for him or my wife, which was super important. There was no issues there. And the experience, like, full transparency, was a weird mix of, like, this super deep, horrible sadness, but then also there's, like, relief and love mixed in there. Like, it's the worst thing you could ever imagine. It's so sad. It's so awful. But I did feel at that time, like, some relief that it was over and that he wasn't suffering, that my wife wasn't suffering, and that we did it. It happened. And this thing you were so afraid of, you finally just do it, and then you're done. It's like, okay, we did it. And being with him in the hospital afterward, like, I know I felt so much love for him. We felt so much love for him. I was thankful for him. And I felt some peace knowing that he wasn't sitting here suffering. So it was a really strange experience. And we love him, and we loved him so much. We still love him so much. But we've also never been more devastated than we were leaving without him. That was the worst. Like, you gotta pack up your stuff and go on out. And obviously, like, they don't kick you out or anything like that, but brutal. Like, you just pack your stuff up and the both of you get in the car and you drive home. It was weird. It was horrible. But now it's been almost exactly a month since we lost him. October 15th was his original due date. So today was his original due date. And so after being home for about a month without him, watching my wife go through postpartum with no baby, that sucks. Talking through this with my son and helping him understand where his brother is and what happened, going to a funeral home, dealing with all those things and sharing this with people. I felt, and I've gone through a ton. And right after we came back, it's weird. Like, it's gone all over the place. Right when I came back, I was really sad, but at peace. Then, like, for the 2 weeks after that, I was angry. I was just pissed off, and, like, not even directly angry at my situation, but I was, like, mad at other people. And it was stupid stuff. Like, I'd see people on social media or, like, out wherever, and I'd be like, I was mad at them because they didn't have to deal with this, or, I don't know. Like, but it was just weird the way it showed up. I was angry about it. And now it's like, I'm closer to peace again. I'm still sad. It still comes and goes. It's weird. Like, yesterday I'm at the gym in the morning and I thought about Cruz, and I'm, like, crying while I'm trying to do sled pushes, like, tearing up. It's just weird. Like, it shows up, out of nowhere. That it just is what it is, but it's a day by day thing. I think, for me, that I found peace in a few things. Like, number one, my dad shared a story with me about a pastor at a big church in Arizona whose son committed suicide when he was in his 20s. And the pastor said that he found more peace when he realized it wasn't his job to get over it. He didn't need to get over it, but he would get through it. And my wife and I, we will never get over losing Cruz, but we will get through it. And there's a big difference between those. So understanding that it's not something I just have to get over, but I have to work through. And number two, a friend of mine, after this happened, told me, when we lose loved ones, they take a piece of us with them. And that's okay because it's theirs to take. I don't need to fill this hole. That piece of me is his, and I want him to have it. It's okay that it's gone. And last, grief. The definition of grief that my wife showed me this that I really love is grief is just love that has nowhere to go. And I find that reminding myself that I feel this way because I love him helps. That's a good thing. It's a good thing to feel that. And I don't need to run from it. I don't need to be afraid because I feel his emotions. So that's what's kind of got me through it. But I share this again because it's helpful for me to share it. I think it's good for me to talk through it. But I also know that most people going through this, they feel alone, especially men. There's not a whole lot out there. You don't know where to go. I've had, a friend of mine from high school reach out who went through a similar thing, and it's like, dude, we got nothing. It's really hard. There's a couple things here and there, but it's just you don't hear that much about it. So I'm hoping maybe me sharing this, can help out some people who are feeling like they're on an island with this because it does happen. It happens more often than you think, all over the place. So some people can feel alone, like they're on an island on this, and I hope me sharing this lets people know they're not alone. We're all not alone. And if you need someone to talk to that's going through it, I'm here. Even if this is something you identify with, not in the same way, but, something that relates to you, we can talk, we can chat. So if there aren't any answers, there's no words, but sometimes it helps to just say it. So that's it. That's my story. I appreciate it.